I know. Y'all hadn't seen me in a long time. But your boy Dimes Reacts is back. Y'all hadn't seen my beautiful or ugly face in a long time. I won't be tripping if y'all call me either one. Y'all hadn't seen me, but all jokes aside, y'all hadn't seen me in a while. I hadn't dropped a reaction in forever. But I'm back and better than ever. Today we reacting to why do NBA rivalries suck in analysis. Please show a like, comment, subscribe, share the video, roll 300 subscribers. Go subscribe to Synthetic Sports as well. I dropped a sub as well. I wasn't going to tell y'all to do something that I myself didn't do because Synthetic Sports makes good content. He's analyzing why does rivalries in the NBA now suck. There, in my opinion, before the video starts, I think he's probably going to talk about how the players are, like this is something you hear old heads talk about a lot. How the older player back in the day, the players weren't so buddy like they are now. Like, wouldn't that make more of a rivalry though if the players outside of the game are friends, but on the court, like I don't know, when I ball with against my friends, you really get to show them that bragging rights basically. But a lot of older people try to say, oh, it's because the players are so buddy off the court now. That's why rivalries don't exist. But I feel like rivalries nowadays really only exist amongst fan bases. Like Lakers fans and Clippers fans. The Lakers and Clippers are not really a rivalry like teams, but like it's just more so the fan base. Like Clippers fans and Lakers fans, we cannot stand each other because like the whole narrative of who's the real LA team. And we like, bro, we got 17 championships. And y'all don't have one finals appearance. So y'all can't be the real LA team. And they go, oh, but we're the better team right now. Which they're not. We're the better team right now. But, you know, Warriors versus whatever team LeBron plays for. Like when the Warriors-Cavs. Like Warriors-Cavs not a rivalry now. But when LeBron played for Cleveland, they were a rivalry. Now it's Warriors-Lakers because LeBron is the factor in why the Warriors and Lakers are a rivalry. That's more so amongst the fans. And another big thing that I don't know if he's going to address in this video, most people aren't fans of teams anymore. Like basketball, that is the one sport where people aren't like people will be like, oh, I'm a LeBron fan, not a Lakers fan. For whatever reason, if Steph Curry decides to lead the Warriors, a lot of Warriors fans, they'll call themselves Warrior fans right now because let's be real, we don't foresee Steph Curry going to no other team. Same thing with Giannis for the Bucks fans out there that do exist. But Warriors fans, if Steph Curry, I don't know, goes to the Hornets, I want to take my talents to my hometown. He goes to the Hornets. You know how many new Hornets fans there will be? So I feel like that plays a factor in why there's not really rivalries like that anymore. It's like, and then we want to never have that Lakers Celtics. Like the league tries so hard to push for that to still be a thing. But let's be real. In the 80s, it just happened to be, they happened to got lucky that Magic Johnson ended up on the Lakers and Larry Bird ended up on the Celtics. Because if they ended up on like let's say Larry Bird used to get drafted by the let's see, what's another Eastern Conference? The Bucks, and Magic Johnson gets drafted by the Rockets. Are we really gonna be pushing a Bucks Rockets rivalry all the 80s? Probably not. And then like the Lakers with Kobe's last trying to win without Shaq, and then the big three Celtics, it kind of happened naturally. Like the league is still trying to hang on to that Lakers-Celtics rivalry, which it don't really hit like it used to either. But enough ranting, long intro. Let me get into the video. I might even have to cut some of that out.
Why do NBA rivalries suck? It's a question I'm sure every NBA fan has asked themselves at some point. Now, there are certainly teams that don't particularly care for each other. The three original Northeast teams have never been particularly fond of each other. Sorry, Brooklyn, you don't count.
But yeah, like, even in the NFL, like, division, in the NBA, your division doesn't really matter anymore. Like, you know, because what? The Pacific Division, our division is just the four California teams plus Phoenix. The Southwest is the three Texas teams plus the Pelicans and Memphis. And then what's the other? Northwest, OKC for whatever reason. Is it? Well, I guess because the Supersonics and when they moved, they didn't want to realign the divisions. But divisions don't really matter like they do in the NFL because you win your division in the NFL, you're guaranteed a home field advantage in the first round, right? Something like that.
Goes for the Texas Triangle, the two LA teams, but I don't think any of those matchups, except for maybe the Sixers and the Celtics, qualify as a full-on rivalry. Now, this isn't to say the NBA hasn't had rivalries before, because it certainly has.
Yes. Oh, yeah. The only real rivalry, per se, right now is probably the Heat and Celtics, because they happen to match up every year in the playoffs. Heat, Celtics, that's probably the new rivalry. That's probably the league's only rivalry. I see that more as a rivalry than Celtics Sixers. That's just me.
Versus the bad boy Pistons, LeBron's Cavs versus Golden State, the Bulls versus the Knicks in the 90s, Lakers versus Spurs in the 2000s, Ben Simmons versus the Rim. There's a fair few good ones in there. But all those rivalries I mentioned are specific to their own time. They haven't endured across generations.
Yeah, that's only
the Lakers and Celtics rivalry is really the only one. So why can't the NBA build long-standing rivalries?
Not the same anymore. But let's see. Why do rivalries suck? W editing.
Let me just say before we start, I'm not really going to be talking about how all the players are buddy-buddy with each other.
Okay, that's the plus.
That doesn't help, but I think there are bigger issues holding back NBA rivalries. But before we get into those issues, if you haven't already, make sure you drop a like on the video and give us a subscribe.
That would benefit more than people
appreciate it. Really. And if you don't subscribe, your team will trade for Russell Westbrook.
Oh yeah, that's how you know this video was made a year ago.
The NBA just recently celebrated their 75th season, and while to the average person that seems like a long time, and to this 24-year-old seems like an eternity, in terms of a sports league's lifespan, it's actually not that long. It's actually on the shorter side. Look at professional baseball. The National League was founded in 1876, and the American League was founded in 1901. Similarly, the NFL was founded in 1920, and if we go across the pond, the English Football League was founded in 1888, the Italian Serie A in 1898, La Liga in Spain in 1929, and the French League One in 1930. It's also important to note that many rivalries in European football actually predate these leagues' founding. For example, Barcelona and Real Madrid first met in 1902. Rivalries, above everything else, take time to develop, and simply put, the NBA has just not been around as long as other leagues. But surely 75 years is plenty of time to develop some rivalries, right? That extra 20, 30, 40 years can't make that much of a difference, right? Well, it's not just the age of the league, but the age of the teams too. The NBA had its first season in 1946, and of the 11 teams that participated, only 3 still exist today, and only
the Celtics. Bro, who are these teams?
The Warriors are still in their original city. The Knicks. The NBA is full of young franchises, and to illustrate this point, of the current 30 NBA teams, only 18 of them have been in the city they currently call home since 1980. Compare that to the NFL, where 22 teams have been in their current cities since 1980. This doesn't count the Rams, by the way, so if you count them having moved back to LA, that brings your total to 23. This trend is even more prevalent in baseball. 25 of the 30 teams have played in their current city since 1980, with the exceptions being the Rays, Marlins, Nationals, Diamondbacks, and Rockies. It's also important to note that while the NFL and MLB have more teams in their respective cities for longer, those teams are often significantly older than NBA teams as well. The average age of the 18 NBA teams I mentioned earlier is 58 years. The average age of the 22 NFL teams, 71 years. And the 25 baseball teams, 87 years. Rivalries are built up over generations of meetings, and outside of the Northeast teams, very few teams in the NBA have met consistently enough over a long period of time. But what about the MLS? The MLS is an even younger league than the NBA, being founded in only 1993. In fact, 30% of MLS players are older than the league itself, and yet the MLS has managed to establish several strong rivalries. I'm from Portland, and I can tell you right now, Portlanders hate the Whitecaps, and especially the Sounders, far more than they hate any NBA team. Now, yes, the Timbers-Sounders rivalry does go back further than the MLS. It dates back to the old North American Soccer League in 1975. But there are other more recent ones too. The Atlantic Cup, California Classico, Canadian Classic all feel much more defined than any NBA rivalry outside of Lakers-Celtics. So why can the MLS build rivalries, but the NBA can't?
Okay, casuals.
I'll get
Let's
back.
see what he's trying to say. I don't like this term casuals too much because like the average fan is a casual. But let's see where he finna go with this.
Less in just a second. But first, I need to establish this point. Basketball is the easiest sport to enjoy casually. Now, what do I mean by that?
True.
Well, essentially, you enjoy watching the sport and you enjoy watching a team, but the results don't particularly affect you. In most cases, you're happy when the team wins, sure, but relatively indifferent when they lose. And basketball is the easiest sport to enjoy in this way. In fact, I would argue it is designed to be enjoyed this way. The actual sport of basketball, I would argue, is the simplest. Now, every sport can be dumbed down to be simple. Football is just put ball in end zone, but hand most people an NFL playbook and they'll look at it like it's in a foreign language. Anyone remember that viral Cooper Kupp clip?
Yeah, they set a little 3-deep fire zone, brought the nickel off the edge, safety dropped down. It didn't look like they were doing a replacement fire zone, so I knew at the back away we were going to get 3 pushing through.
Bruh.
I had an opportunity to kind of run in there if I could beat my guy and just had to beat the safety to the end zone.
Okay, I feel like I know a decent amount about football, and I have close to zero clue what he just said. Soccer is the same. On the surface, it's just put ball in net, but the formations and the tactics, and honestly some of the rules, can be difficult for outsiders to grasp. Ever tried explaining offsides to someone who doesn't watch soccer?
I don't watch soccer. I don't know.
Offside. I don't understand it yet.
Basketball, especially nowadays, most teams run 90% high pick and roll, drive and kick, or isolation. They may have sets that they use, but the majority of them can be listed down to the 3 concepts I mentioned before. The NBA is also the most star-driven league. Soccer may have an argument here, especially abroad, but in the States, NBA stars are the most popular and they're the highest earners. With
True.
36
I didn't think about that. I mean, like I said, people are more fans of players than teams in the NBA nowadays, but the NBA is very star-driven. I didn't think about it that way. That is very true. I'm not arguing that one.
Top 100 highest paid athletes worldwide in 2022 being NBA players. And the stars are popular because they drive results and not just ratings. If you think about it, basketball is the rare team sport in which a single player can carry a team to success. Mike Trout is considered by many to be one of, if not the best baseball player in the world, and he's had this reputation for basically his whole career. Yet in his decade plus with the Angels, they've only made the playoffs a single time and were swept out of the ALDS by Kansas City. A top 5 player in the NBA missing the playoffs is extremely rare, and missing the playoffs for 5+ seasons in a row is unheard of. Additionally, the NBA has only 450 players compared to the NFL's 1,696 and the MLB's 1,088. And soccer, well, yeah, 450, much easier to stay familiar with. Finally, there's the length of the season, 82 games, which is the perfect amount of games. Your team plays 3 to 5 games per week on average, and most of those games are going to be after 6 p.m. local time, meaning if you're still in school or if you work during the day, you're still able to watch your team. The NBA season also takes place from October to April, when the weather is generally not as good and there's less to do outside. Compared to the other leagues, the NFL season also takes place during the colder months, but if you have obligations on Sunday, you're shit out of luck. If you do have Sundays off and you can watch the games, then there's still only 17 regular season games. And because there's so few of them, it's almost unavoidable that you're gonna be more emotionally invested in each game.
I say this all the time. Like, the NFL, every game, like, if your team is trying to make it to the playoffs and seeding and all that, every game matters. And not only does every game matter, you only, the way the NFL schedule is set up, teams only, like, outside, like, let's say, outside conference, teams only play each other, like, once every 4 years or something like that? Something like, even if you're in the same conference, what is it, like, once every 4, like, and you're not in the same division, you play once every 4 years or something like that? So it's like, Tom Brady, I'm a Carolina Panthers fan, and when Tom Brady played for the Patriots, we probably only matched up with him once every 4 years. Same thing, since I'm from the Carolina area, a lot of people, if they're not Panthers fans, they're either Steelers or Cowboys fans. The Steelers and Cowboys, those are like the 2 most popular teams in the NFL. They only play once every 4 years, and then you got to be lucky that, the Panthers are the home team, so let's get tickets for this game. So, because I think Panthers and Cowboys, that game sold out, not because the Panthers were so good, but because there's so many Cowboys fans from down here that they wanted to get tickets to see their team play, and that's probably the closest, unless they fly out to Dallas, which, I mean, it's doable, but most people aren't doing that. So, yeah, every game matters, not only from a ratings point of view, but every game matters. But in the NBA, you know how many star players rest against teams? Like, oh, we're playing Detroit tonight. LeBron, AD, y'all can sit out. That's why they had to add that resting rule.
On the other hand, you have baseball, which is the polar opposite of the NFL. It takes place during the summer when school is out and the weather is nice, and the MLB season has so many games that it basically forces their fans to dedicate a huge amount of time to keep up with their team. If you only watch half an MLB season, that's a full NBA season. And it's not like baseball games are short. The NBA season sits in this sweet spot. There are enough games that you aren't overly attached to any individual regular season game, but there's also not so many that it requires a huge time sink to watch most of them. So, what does this all have to do with the MLS?
But even with that, a lot of the NBA games, a lot of times, some of them do be feeling like filler.
Basketball plays best to casual fans, because soccer doesn't. If you've ever been to a soccer match of a well-supported club, you know this, because soccer fan culture actively encourages hardcore fandom. This is the case both in the States and especially around the world. If you want examples, in the US, the Timbers Army and Emerald City supporters are two good examples, and abroad there are way more, but here's just a few. Boca Juniors, River Plate, St. Pauli, Borussia Dortmund, Liverpool, Millwall, Red Star Belgrade, Lazio, Besiktas, Galatasaray, and many, 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 I cannot stress this many enough, many more. Expect flags, banners, chants, songs, and if you're lucky enough, maybe some smoke bombs and flares. At a regular season NBA game, well, pick the right game and you could probably take a nap in the stadium, even if it's sold out. It's very sanitized, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. The NBA very much wants to create a safe environment for fans, and especially children, because the last thing they want is another malice at the palace. But there's no denying that it can lead to a bit of a sterile atmosphere for fans. But better fan culture can't
you
be
do
the
hear
only
stories
reason, right?
about like the intensity of players getting heckled and all of that type of stuff. You still do hear those stories from time to time, because if you go to the right regular season game on the right night, sure, but playoffs, I mean, it sucks that you gotta wait till the playoffs to really get that atmosphere of. That's why I say the Heat and Celtics is probably the best rivalry we got right now, because they happen to match up every year in the playoffs, and you don't know who's gonna win when them two go at it. And a lot of those games be down to the wire.
Baseball games aren't that lively, so what's holding the NBA back?
What? Baseball game? I went to a professional baseball game before. Well, maybe it's more of a social gathering than anything, actually. Maybe he got a point there, because like a lot of those people, you could tell they probably don't know a lick about baseball. Heck, I didn't know much about baseball. I went to a Cincinnati Reds game when I was in Cincy for a while. It was good atmosphere, but like I said, most people was probably there for the atmosphere. Like, they get so drunk at those games, I'm not gonna lie.
The structure of the NBA doesn't help facilitate rivalries. What do I mean by this? Well, I discussed the length of the season earlier, but the NBA structure and playoffs as a whole don't help either. For some MLB teams and pretty much all NFL teams, their biggest rivals are their divisional rivals. Seahawks, Niners, Bears, Packers, Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers, Giants, basically the whole NFC East, AFC West, and AFC North. And it makes sense, because in the NFL and the MLB, winning your division matters. In the MLB, only 12 teams make the playoffs, and that's a new thing this year, because between 2022 and 2012 it was only 10, and from 2011 to 93 it was only 8, and from 93 to 1969 it was only 4, and shoot, before 1969 they said what playoffs and just played the World Series. And even at 12, winning your division is huge, because the top 2 division winners get a bye into the divisional series. The NFL is the same, only 14 teams make it, top division winner gets a first round bye, and the other 3 get home field advantage in the wild card games. This makes division games incredibly valuable, and that is how you facilitate rivalries, by making it
Wasn't the NBA like that?
The NBA lets 20 teams into the postseason, and divisions are borderline meaningless. Worthless. You win your division in the NBA, you get a division winner banner. That's it. Actually, in doing my research, I found out you also get a trophy. Yippee. Now, this wasn't always the case. Before 2006-2007, division winners were guaranteed the top seeds in the conference. This changed after 2006, when Dallas and San Antonio had the two best records in the Western Conference, but because of the rule, they were the first and fourth seeds, meaning they had to play each other in the second round. This was remedied the following year, allowing the best record outside of the division winners to be seeded in the top four alongside the division winners based on record. So it's all good. Problem solved, right?
Not exactly.
This is relatively uncommon, but it has cropped up a few times over the years, with the 4th seed division winner having a worse record than the 5th seed, and thus they don't get home court advantage despite being the 4th seed. So why are they even the 4th seed?
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
In short, the NFL and the MLB have fostered division rivalries by making winning your division tied to postseason seeding, making every division game valuable. The NBA has made its divisions close to meaningless in regards to postseason seeding, and thus division rivals aren't a thing in the NBA. But what about soccer? Again, well, around the world, soccer...
My bad. So basically, if they make rivalries mean something again in the NBA, rivalries will happen again. If they made divisions
function very differently from North American leagues. Almost all soccer leagues don't even have a postseason, and the champion of the league is determined by who has the most points at the conclusion of the season. This might make it seem like rivalries would be hard to develop and maintain, especially if one team is going through a rough patch. But in reality, it's the opposite. Because even if your team has no chance to win a championship, you can still prevent your rival from winning one.
Ooh.
This happens in college football all the time. 2007 backyard brawl, anyone? Pittsburgh finished that season 5-7 and didn't even go to a bowl game, and yet it's one of the most fondly remembered seasons in Pitt history because they denied their arch rivals a chance at a national championship. The same goes for soccer. Example, Leeds United. They haven't been a Premier League title contender in 2 decades. But their fans would love nothing more than to take points off their rivals Manchester United and to hurt them in the title chase or potentially keep them out of a Champions League qualifying spot. But what about Man United in this scenario? Well, what I said earlier about a bad team denying a good team a championship, the opposite is true as well. For anyone unfamiliar with how international soccer leagues work, finishing near the bottom of the league is far more devastating than in the NFL or the NBA. You have the worst record in the NFL or NBA, you get a high draft pick. You finish with the worst record in soccer, you get relegated to a lower league. Imagine if the worst NBA team last year got sent to the G League. That's the closest comparison I can give for the NBA. And in the Leeds-Man United rivalry,
if they did that in
the
only problem is if they did something like that in the NBA, the worst NBA team is beating the worst G League team, so they'll be flip-flop in the worst G League. I mean, the best G League team is not beating the worst NBA team, so they'll be flip-flopping back and forth every year. That'll be the only problem with that.
Kick Leeds out of the Premier League. Even though both teams are at the opposite ends of the table, they both have something to gain from the game. Something like this isn't really possible in the NBA because if your team's bad and you beat a rival, I mean, good for you, but unless it knocks them from the 4th seed to the 5th seed or from the automatic qualifiers to the play-in tournament, it really doesn't mean much. And if you're bad, you probably want your rival to beat you because then you'll get a better shot at a higher draft pick.
Okay, let's see what his solutions are.
So, what are some immediate
things
we can do to fix
this? But the only thing I can think of for my
well,
solution is make divisions mean something.
Fortunately, the most needed fix is time, and well, that isn't immediate. So how about in the short term? Well, the NBA needs to make divisions mean something.
That's the only thing I can think
really. Easiest fix would be to give the 3 division winners home court advantage in the first round. That's at least something. Yes, every once in a while, a team with a better record wouldn't have home court advantage, but that's the way it is in the NFL, and they seem to be doing just fine. But honestly, outside of just waiting and making divisions more valuable, I'm not sure there is a fix. Shortening the season might help, makes games more valuable, and will probably get fans more invested, but it also means less revenue for the players and for the league, so that's out. Create a fan environment more akin to soccer? Probably impossible, because I don't think the NBA wants smoke bombs and flares at their games, and like I said earlier, basketball plays to casual fans, and casual fans aren't exactly the type to bring banners and sing songs and do chants. So, will the NBA ever be able to build rivalries on par with soccer, baseball, and football? Soccer, absolutely not. Fans are just way too passionate about their clubs, and I don't ever see NBA fans reaching that level of passion. Baseball and football, however, I think the jury is still out. It will take time, maybe a long time, but if the NBA can stop teams from constantly relocating and put more importance on divisional games
had a
in the regular
relocation
season,
in a while,
then maybe. I do think, however, the NBA has one rivalry in its back pocket, one that they could and should make happen sooner rather than later.
What is that?
One that would have history and hatred behind it from both fan bases. one that I think would transcend Lakers-Celtics as the NBA's best rivalry. Oklahoma City versus Seattle. Make it happen.
Low-key?
Silver. Make it happen.